The phone rang at 3 a.m. Daniel's eyes snapped open in the darkness. Nobody called at this hour unless something terrible had happened. His wheelchair sat beside the bed, ready as always. He pulled himself into it and rolled to his small table where the phone wouldn't stop screaming. "Hello? Daniel? Daniel, please help me." Amara's voice was broken, desperate. "I'm at the hospital. They say I'm going to die." The words hit him like a truck. 4 years of watching her grow from a scared village girl into a brilliant young woman, and now this. Daniel gripped the phone tighter. "I'm coming," he said, "right now." As he hung up and grabbed his keys, Daniel had no idea that this phone call would change everything. That in 12 hours, he would make a choice that would cost him everything he had. And that 6 months later, the girl he saved would break his heart into pieces. But that's getting ahead of the story. Let me tell you how it really started. But first, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Your support means the world to me and helps me bring you more amazing stories like this one. It really does make a huge difference. Thank you so much. Now, let's dive into how this incredible journey began. 2 years earlier, Daniel Okoro was having the worst day of his business life. He sat in his wheelchair outside the Onitsha main market, watching his last bag of rice get soaked by the sudden afternoon rain. Water poured through the holes in his small shed's roof, turning his profits into a soggy mess. "Chai," he muttered, using his hands to wheel himself under a bigger shop's canopy. "Even the rain wants to finish me today." At 32, Daniel had been in a wheelchair for 8 years. A construction accident had crushed his spine and his dreams in one terrible moment. But if you met him, you'd never know he was bitter about it. The man smiled like sunshine, even when his life was falling apart. "Uncle Daniel," a small boy ran up to him, splashing through the puddles. "My mama says thank you for the rice you gave us last week. She cooked it this morning." Daniel smiled and ruffled his wet hair. "Tell your mama I said she's a good woman. And you, go home before this rain catches you proper." The boy ran off, and Daniel shook his head. That free bag of rice was supposed to be his lunch money for 3 days. But how do you watch a widow with 5 children go hungry when you have food to share? This was Daniel's problem, according to everyone who knew him. Too kind for his own good, too giving for a man who barely had anything. His late mother used to tell him, "Daniel, your heart is too big for your pocket." She was right. He was still sitting there, watching his ruined rice, when he overheard the conversation that would change everything. 2 women stood nearby, arguing in loud whispers. "I'm telling you, Amara, there's no money," the older woman was saying. "Your father lost his job last month. We can't pay for another semester." "But Mama, I only have 1 year left." The younger voice was desperate, pleading. "Just 1 year and I'll have my certificate. Then I can get a good job and help the family." "With what money? Tell me, with what money?" Daniel turned to look at them. The older woman was maybe 50, wearing a faded church dress that had seen better years, but it was the younger one that caught his attention. She was tall and slim, maybe 22, with intelligent eyes that were now filled with tears. She held her school bag like it was the most precious thing in the world. "Please, Mama, let me go and beg the school. Maybe they'll allow me to pay in small amounts." "And embarrass us more than we already are? No, Amara. Come, let's go home. Your father is waiting." As they turned to leave, the girl, Amara, dropped her bag. Paper scattered everywhere in the wind and rain. Daniel watched her chase after them, crying now, trying to save her wet notebooks and assignments. Something twisted in his chest. He knew that desperation. He'd felt it every day after his accident, when the world told him he was finished, useless, better off giving up. Before he could think twice, Daniel was rolling his wheelchair toward them. "Excuse me," he called out. The women stopped. The older woman looked suspicious immediately. Strangers who butted into family business usually wanted something. "I couldn't help but hear," Daniel said gently. "Your daughter is in school?" "Was in school," the mother corrected bitterly. "But that's none of your business, young man." Amara looked up from gathering her wet papers. Her eyes met Daniel's, and he saw something there that made his decision for her. Not just desperation, hope. Even in her tears, she still had hope. "What are you studying?" he asked her directly. "Computer science," she whispered. "At the Polytechnic." Daniel nodded slowly. He looked at his ruined rice, then at this girl who was watching her dreams wash away in the rain, just like his. But here was the difference. Her dreams could still be saved. "How much do you need for the semester?" The mother's eyes narrowed. "Why? You want to dash us money? We're not beggars." "No, ma'am. But I'm a businessman. I believe in good investments." This was a lie. Daniel barely made enough to feed himself most months. But sometimes when you meet someone who needs a miracle, you become that miracle, even if you don't know how. 250,000 naira, Amara said quietly, then quickly added, "But we'll pay you back, I promise." 250,000 naira. Daniel's entire savings was 300,000 naira. Money he was keeping for when his own health got bad enough that he couldn't work anymore. Money that was supposed to be his safety net. He looked at this girl holding her wet notebooks, at her mother's proud but desperate face, and at the hope that was dying in both their eyes. "Okay," he said. "I'll sponsor your education." The silence that followed was so complete you could hear the rain hitting the ground. "What did you say?" the mother whispered. "I'll pay for your daughter's schooling. All of it, until she graduates." Amara dropped her bag again. This time she didn't bother picking it up. She was staring at Daniel like he'd grown wings. "Why? Why would you do that for strangers?" Daniel smiled, the first real smile he'd had all day. "Because someone told me that kindness is the only thing that multiplies when you give it away. And because," he paused, looking at her wet textbooks, "because dreams shouldn't die in the rain."
3 weeks later, Amara knocked on Daniel's door for the first time. She held an envelope in her shaking hands. "I passed," she shouted before he could even say hello. "Daniel, I passed all my exams. Top of the class." She was so excited she was jumping up and down in his doorway like a small child. Daniel couldn't help but laugh. Her joy was infectious. Come in, tell me everything." His house was small, 2 rooms in a quiet street. Clean but simple. The furniture had seen better days, but everything was neat and organized. Amara noticed that his wheelchair moved easily around the space. He'd arranged everything so he could live independently. "The lecturers couldn't believe I caught up so fast," she was saying, settling into his old sofa. "They said most students who miss 3 weeks never recover, but I studied every day, every night. I couldn't let your sacrifice be for nothing." "It's not a sacrifice if it makes me happy," Daniel said, making tea for both of them. "And seeing you succeed makes me very happy." This became their routine. Every week, Amara would visit to report her progress. At first, she came out of gratitude, to show Daniel his money was being put to good use. But as the weeks turned into months, something deeper started to grow. Daniel was not like any man Amara had ever met. He listened when she talked about her dreams of starting a tech company. He encouraged her when she struggled with difficult subjects. He celebrated every small victory like it was his own. More importantly, he never made her feel like she owed him anything beyond her best effort. "You know," she told him one evening as they shared dinner, she'd started cooking for him sometimes, "My father thinks you want to marry me." Daniel nearly choked on his rice. "What?" "He says no man gives away that kind of money without expecting something in return." "And what do you think?" Amara studied his face carefully. "I think you're the most genuine person I've ever met. And I think," she paused, looking down at her hands, "I think if you did want to marry me, you'd be brave enough to say so." Daniel felt his heart skip a beat. Was she? No. She was just a girl, grateful for his help. He was a man in a wheelchair 10 years older, with no real prospects. What could he offer someone like her? "Amara," he said gently, "I want you to focus on your studies. Don't worry about what people think or what they expect. Just become the brilliant woman I know you can be." But as she smiled and nodded, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just lied to both of them. The phone call came in Amara's final semester. She had 6 months left before graduation, a job offer already waiting from a tech company in Lagos, and a future that looked brighter than anything her family had ever imagined. Then her body started shutting down. It began with tiredness, then swelling in her legs, then the blood in her urine that made her mother scream when she saw it. Kidney failure, the doctor said, his voice clinical and cold. Both kidneys, advanced stage. Without immediate dialysis and eventually a transplant, she has maybe 3 to 6 months. Amara's mother collapsed into a chair. Her father, who had never shown emotion in front of his daughter, started crying like a child. But all Amara could think about was Daniel. How do you tell someone who sacrificed everything for your education that you're going to die just before finishing? How much? Her mother whispered to the doctor. How much for everything? The dialysis will cost about 200,000 naira monthly. The transplant surgery, if we can find a donor, will be around 3 million naira, plus medications, hospital stay. The numbers floated in the air like a death sentence. Amara's father made maybe 50,000 naira on a good month. They might as well have asked for the moon. That night, Amara called Daniel. "I need to see you," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "It's important." Daniel heard something in her tone that made him afraid. "I'm coming right now." She was waiting for him at the hospital when he arrived. The sight of her stopped him cold. In just 2 weeks since he'd last seen her, she looked like she had aged 5 years. Her skin was pale, her eyes sunken. She looked fragile in a way that scared him. "Tell me," he said simply. So she told him about the kidney failure, about the costs, about the doctor's timeline. She told him everything except the thing that was really breaking her heart, that she was going to disappoint him after everything he'd done. When she finished talking, Daniel was quiet for a long time. "Okay," he said finally. "Okay? We'll figure it out. You're not dying on my watch, Amara. Not after we've come this far." "But Daniel, the money!" "Will be found, somehow. I don't know how yet, but it will be found." She started crying then. Not the gentle tears of gratitude, but the desperate sobs of someone who'd been holding in terror for days. Daniel pulled his wheelchair closer and took her hands. "Look at me," he said. "Look at me, Amara." She raised her eyes to his. "When I had my accident, everyone told me my life was over, that I was finished, that I should just accept being half a man. But you know what kept me going?" She shook her head. "The belief that God doesn't close every door, that somewhere, somehow, there's always a way forward. You gave me purpose again when you let me help with your education. Now let me help with this."
But how? Daniel was quiet for a moment. An idea was forming in his mind. A crazy, dangerous, beautiful idea. "Let me worry about how," he said. "You just focus on staying strong." The next morning, Daniel went to the hospital alone. He told them he was asking for a friend. "I need to know about kidney transplants," he said to the doctor. "How do you find donors?" "Well, we check family members first, then friends if they're willing to be tested. The donor has to be a perfect match, and they have to be healthy enough for surgery." "What if the donor has a disability?" The doctor looked at Daniel's wheelchair. "What kind of disability?" "Paralyzed from the waist down." "That could complicate things. We'd have to do extensive testing to make sure the person could handle the surgery and recovery." "Why do you ask?" Daniel took a deep breath. "I want to be tested as a potential donor." "For your friend?" "Yes." The doctor studied him for a long moment. "You understand that kidney donation is serious surgery. Even for healthy people, there are risks. For someone with paralysis, I understand. And you understand that you'd need to keep this confidential until we know if you're even a match? We don't want to give false hope. Daniel nodded. When can we do the test? 3 days later, he had his answer. Perfect match. 6 factors out of 6. The doctor called it remarkable. But I have to be honest with you, the doctor said. The surgery will be much riskier for you than for a typical donor. Your recovery will be longer, more complicated, and there could be long-term effects on your overall health. What are the chances Amara lives if she doesn't get a transplant? 0. Maybe she gets a few extra months with dialysis, but... And if she gets my kidney? 90% chance of full recovery and normal life. Daniel nodded. When can we schedule the surgery? Are you sure about this? This is a major decision. You should think about it. Talk to your family. I don't have family, and I'm sure. The doctor looked at him for a long time. Why are you doing this? Daniel thought about all the possible answers. Because she was young and had her whole life ahead of her? Because he'd invested too much in her future to let it end now? Because it was the right thing to do? But the real answer was simpler and more complicated than any of those. Because I love her, he said quietly, and this is what love does. Daniel never told Amara he was being tested. While she went through the agony of dialysis 3 times a week, watching her parents sell everything they owned to pay for it, he quietly arranged everything. He sold his small business. He borrowed money against his house. He called in every favor he'd ever been owed. Somehow, he scraped together enough to cover the hospital costs. Then he made up a story. I found a donor, he told Amara's family one evening. They were all gathered in the hospital room where she was hooked up to the dialysis machine, looking small and defeated. A donor? Her mother whispered. Who? Someone who wanted to remain anonymous. All I can tell you is that it's a perfect match and the surgery can happen next week. Omara's father stood up so fast he knocked over his chair. How did you find someone? We've been looking for months. Daniel had prepared for this question. I have friends in different places. One of them knew someone who was willing to help. It wasn't exactly a lie. He was willing to help himself. But the cost, her mother started, is taken care of. Daniel, Amara said from the bed, her voice weak but urgent. This is too much. You've already done too much. It's never too much for family, and I meant it. The night before surgery, Daniel sat in his small room, writing a letter he hoped Amara would never have to read, just in case something went wrong. Amara, if you're reading this, it means I didn't make it through the surgery. Don't cry for me. Don't feel guilty. I made this choice with joy in my heart. You gave my life meaning when I thought I was finished. Watching you grow and succeed has been the greatest privilege of my life. You owe me nothing. You never did. Live well, love freely, change the world like I know you can. All my love, Daniel. He sealed the letter and left it on his table, then went to bed. Tomorrow, he would either save the woman he loved or die trying. Both seemed like acceptable outcomes. The surgery took 8 hours. Amara went under anesthesia, thinking her mystery donor was in another hospital somewhere. She woke up to find Daniel's bed next to hers in the recovery room. For a moment, she thought she was hallucinating from the medication. Daniel? What are you doing here? He turned his head toward her, smiling weakly. He was pale and had tubes running from his body, but his eyes were bright with relief. Hello, beautiful. How are you feeling? Like I've been hit by a truck, but alive, very alive. Daniel, why are you here? Are you sick too? Before he could answer, a nurse came in to check on them both. Our miracle patients, she said cheerfully. How are we feeling this morning? Miracle patients? Amara repeated. Oh yes, it's not every day we see such a perfect kidney match between friends. Your donor here was remarkable through the whole procedure.
The words hit Amara like lightning. She turned to stare at Daniel, understanding flooding her face. "No," she whispered. "No, you didn't." Daniel tried to smile. "Surprise? You gave me your kidney?" Her voice cracked with emotion. "Daniel, what did you do? What did you do?" "I saved your life, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat." Amara started crying then, deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere beyond gratitude. This man had given her everything, first her education, and now literally a part of his body, and she'd never even told him she loved him back. "Why?" she whispered when she could speak again. "Why would you risk everything for me?" Daniel reached across the space between their beds and took her hand. "Because some things are worth every risk. Because seeing you live and thrive is worth more to me than my own safety. Because," he paused, looking into her eyes, "because I love you, Amara. I've loved you for years, and love isn't love until you give it away." In that moment, surrounded by beeping machines and the antiseptic smell of the hospital, Amara knew with absolute certainty that she loved him back, had always loved him but had been too scared to admit it, too worried about what people would think, about the differences between them. None of that mattered now. This man had literally given her life twice, and more than that, he'd shown her what real love looked like. "I love you too," she whispered. Daniel's smile could have powered the whole hospital. Recovery was long, but beautiful. Daniel's health was more fragile than before. The doctors had been right about that. But seeing Amara get stronger every day made every moment of pain worth it. She finished her final semester from her hospital bed with Daniel cheering her on. When graduation day came, she insisted on taking her wheelchair to the ceremony so Daniel could be right beside her when she walked across the stage. "None of this would exist without you, Daniel," she told him as they waited for her name to be called. "This degree, this life, this future, it all belongs to both of us." The job offer in Lagos was still there, but Amara had different plans now. "I want to start something here in Owoka, Daniel," she told him one evening as they sat in his small parlor planning their future. "A tech company that creates opportunities for people like us, people who've been underestimated." "People like us?" The girl from the poor family who almost didn't finish school. The man in the wheelchair who everyone thought was finished. She took his hand. "The ones who know that your circumstances don't define your worth." Daniel smiled. "I like the sound of that." 6 months after the surgery, Amara moved in with Daniel. Not because she felt obligated to, but because she couldn't imagine waking up anywhere else. They were planning their wedding for the following year. A simple ceremony with the few friends and family who had supported them through everything. Life wasn't perfect. Daniel's health required constant monitoring. Money was still tight as Amara built her business. But they had something more valuable than perfect health or wealth. They had a love that had been tested by the worst life could throw at them and had come out stronger. Or so they thought.
The trouble started when Amara's business began to succeed. Her tech company landed a major contract with a multinational corporation. Suddenly, money was flowing in. Recognition followed. She was featured in newspapers as a young entrepreneur to watch. With success came new social circles, industry events, networking dinners, and that's where she met Chaiki. Chaiki Okafor was everything Daniel wasn't. Tall, physically imposing, with the kind of confident swagger that turned heads in every room. He owned 3 successful businesses and drove a Range Rover that cost more than Daniel's entire house. At first, Amara barely noticed him. She was happy, in love, building a life with Daniel. But Chaiki was persistent. "You're wasting your potential," he told her at an industry cocktail party while Daniel was at home recovering from a minor health scare. "A woman like you should be thinking bigger, global expansion, international partnerships." "I'm thinking plenty big," Amara replied coolly, "and I'm happy with my life." "Are you? Really?"
Chaiki moved closer, his voice dropping to an intimate whisper. Or are you just settling because you feel grateful? The words hit harder than they should have, because late at night, sometimes, Amara did wonder. Was her love for Daniel real, or was it just gratitude mixed with guilt? How could she ever know for sure? I can offer you everything, Chaiki continued. Partnership in my business, a lifestyle you've never imagined, freedom to travel the world, to build something massive. I'm engaged, Amara said firmly. To a man who can't give you children, who can't dance with you at parties, who will always be your dependent rather than your equal partner? Each word was carefully chosen to wound, to plant seeds of doubt, and despite herself, she felt them taking root. The worst part was when her parents met Chaiki. Amara's mother took one look at Chaiki's expensive clothes and confident demeanor and saw everything she'd ever wanted for her daughter. This is the kind of man you should be with, she whispered to Amara after Chaiki left their family dinner. Someone who can provide for you, protect you, give you the life you deserve. Mama, Daniel gave me life. Literally, he donated his kidney to save me. And will always be grateful for that. But gratitude is not love, my daughter, and pity is not a foundation for marriage. It's not pity. Then what is it? Tell me honestly. If Daniel was healthy and wealthy, would you still choose him over someone like Chaiki? The question hung in the air like poison, because Amara couldn't answer it, not honestly. Her father was more direct. Daniel is a good man, but he's not a complete man. A woman needs a husband who can stand beside her, not sit below her. What happens when you want children? What happens when his health gets worse? We'll figure it out together. No, Amara, you'll carry the burden alone, just like you're already carrying him. These conversations planted doubt that grew like weeds in Amara's mind. Was she sacrificing her future out of misplaced gratitude? Was she limiting herself because she felt she owed Daniel something? The pressure intensified when Chaiki made his formal proposal at a lavish restaurant, with her parents secretly in attendance to surprise her. The ring was massive, sparkling like a small sun under the restaurant lights. Say yes, her mother pleaded later. Say yes and secure your future. I need time to think, Amara said. But even asking for time felt like a betrayal of everything Daniel had sacrificed for her. Amara started staying late at the office, taking more business trips, finding excuses to avoid the quiet evenings at home, where Daniel would look at her with eyes full of love and trust. She told herself she needed space to think clearly, but the truth was she couldn't look at him without feeling guilty about the doubt in her heart. Daniel noticed, of course, how could he not? The woman who used to rush home to share every detail of her day was now distant, distracted, avoiding his touch. Is everything all right? He asked one evening when she came home past midnight for the third time that week. Fine, just busy with the business. Amara. His voice was gentle but firm. Talk to me. What's really going on? She almost broke then, almost confessed everything about Chaiki, about her parents' pressure, about the terrible questions keeping her awake at night. But how do you tell someone who gave you his kidney that you're wondering if you love him enough? I'm just tired, Daniel. Can we not do this tonight? He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but you know I'm here when you're ready to talk. His kindness made everything worse. A selfish man would have demanded answers, made threats, fought for her. Daniel's patient understanding only highlighted what her parents kept saying, that he was too passive, too willing to be walked over. The breaking point came 3 weeks later, when Daniel accidentally answered her phone while she was in the shower. Hello, beautiful. Chaiki's smooth voice came through the speaker. Still thinking about my proposal? Because I'm getting impatient. Daniel's blood turned to ice. Who is this? A pause. Who is this? Chaiki asked back. This is Daniel, Amara's fiancé. A low chuckle. Oh, the wheelchair man. Well, this is awkward. Daniel hung up without another word. He sat in his wheelchair, staring at the phone, feeling like the world was crumbling around him. When Amara came out of the shower, she found him waiting in the living room, her phone in his lap. "We need to talk," he said quietly.
The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Amara stood in the doorway, water still dripping from her hair, looking like a child caught in a lie. "How long?" Daniel asked quietly. "Daniel, I can explain. How long has this been going on, Amara?" She sat down across from him, unable to meet his eyes. "A few months? But it's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." He's offered me a business partnership, a chance to expand internationally. It's a good opportunity." "And the part where he calls you beautiful and talks about proposals?" Amara's face crumpled. "He asked me to marry him." The words hit Daniel like physical blows. He'd known somehow, but hearing it out loud was different. "And what did you tell him?" "I said I needed time to think." "Time to think," Daniel repeated the words slowly, like he was learning a new language. "About whether you want to marry someone else?" "Daniel, please try to understand. Everyone is telling me I'm making a mistake, that I'm throwing away my future out of guilt and gratitude." "And what do you think?" Amara finally looked at him then, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know. I don't know anymore. Sometimes I look at us and I wonder if we're together for the right reasons, if this is love or just complicated emotions from everything we've been through." Daniel nodded slowly. He'd been afraid of this since the day he decided to sponsor her education, that she would feel trapped by his kindness, obligated by his sacrifice. "I never wanted you to feel trapped. I never wanted you to be with me out of gratitude." "It's not just gratitude." "Then what is it, Amara? Because right now you're talking to another man about marriage while wearing my ring. Help me understand what this is." She struggled for words, for some way to explain the confusion in her heart. "When I'm with you, I'm happy. I feel safe and loved and understood. But when I'm out in the world, when people look at us together, when my parents talk about the future, you're ashamed of me." "No, it's not that simple." "Isn't it?" Daniel's voice was still calm, but she could hear the pain underneath. "You're ashamed of being with a man in a wheelchair, ashamed that your successful friends will think you settled, ashamed that your children might have a father who can't run and play with them." "Stop it!" "Which part is wrong, Amara?" She couldn't answer because none of it was entirely wrong. Those thoughts had crossed her mind in her weakest moments, and she hated herself for it. "I gave you my kidney," Daniel said quietly. "I gave you everything I had, and I'd do it again, because that's what love is. But I won't hold you prisoner with my sacrifice. I won't let you waste your life on me because you feel like you owe me something." "Daniel, please." He held up his hand. "I'm going to make this easy for you. I'm releasing you from any obligation you think you have to me. If you want to marry this chique, marry him. If you want to build a life somewhere else, do it. But do it because it's what you want, not because you're running from guilt." "What if I don't know what I want?" Daniel looked at her for a long moment, memorizing her face. "Then figure it out, but figure it out away from me, because I can't watch you decide whether I'm worth loving." He rolled his wheelchair toward their bedroom. At the doorway, he stopped. "For what it's worth, Amara, I never needed you to love me back. Your happiness was always enough for me. If this man can make you happier than I can, then I want you to choose him." She heard the bedroom door close softly behind him, and she sat in their living room crying until the sun came up. By the time she went to check on him the next morning, Daniel was gone.
I hope you've enjoyed this first part of our story, but trust me, things are about to get even more intense in part 2. It's coming very soon, so hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you'll be the first to know when it drops.